Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow cryptopians. How are you guys doing today? Thanks for being here. We're going to talk charts. We're going to look at the markets and kind of keep it a little bit open session here. We'll talk about whatever names you guys want to look at. We'll look at some charts. I'll take some notes here shortly and look at the names that you guys want to look at. But first, I have a few names that I will be going over myself and just kind of talking markets, where things are going. It's been a little bit of a slow day. We're seeing prices just drift lower. Haven't done a whole lot of trading, to be honest with you. Just kind of raised some cash, took a small short position on some ETH. But other than that, being patient here, letting this thing play out. We're seeing the market under pressure again. Do we make a new low? Do we make a new yearly low? Where do prices go from here? And there's a lot of commentary out there. It's always interesting to see what different perspectives are from whether it's token project leaders or hedge fund managers or the Fed or anybody we're talking about. But thank you guys for being here. You guys are the last few bunch left in crypto. You're like the last 10 people in crypto ever. So it's a dying breed. I'm kidding. I'm being facetious there, but it is quieter. Certainly the last month has really smacked some people hard, felt the pain from this brutal break we had below 6K. And, there's been people leaving the space. I mean, it is what it is. The excitement, the hype has faded, and there's people throwing in the towel and all that fun stuff. But thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you guys being here as always. Appreciate the comments, the commentary, the views on the videos, and all that fun stuff. I'm still trading. I'm still here, and there's still stuff to be had. And long term, fundamentally speaking, the space is it's still moving forward. You're seeing projects continue to build. You're seeing projects go away too. Some people are losing funding and all that, but the space is not going to go away. And it's going to be here for the good term, and we'll see it turn around eventually. When that is anyone's guess. But let's see here. I'm going to start keeping track on some of these comments here, and I'll get to the names here shortly. So give me a sec here, and then I'll go ahead and ask for some names. But for now, I'll just be talking about what I think, what are the markets going for now, and we'll go from there. So first off, Bitcoin. We saw the bounce from the lows last week. Prices bottomed out right around that 3,400, 3,450 here on Coinbase. There was some big wicks here, but if you go through some of the exchanges, it was basically around that 3,400. Didn't stay there very long on a daily basis, though. This is the level that I'm watching from a daily close. Now, there's some debate around, do you use the wicks? Do you use the exact low? And both matter, to be fair. But on a closing basis, I like to use that as a gauge to see where the line in the sand is defended, if you will. And so you've seen on a closing basis that 3,700 mark kind of be that point where prices bounce back and close above that here. But we're getting very close, and we're testing that here. And prices are not looking bullish one bit. Descending triangle can certainly be made there. You can look at that. If we zoom in the 4-hour chart, a little bit more symmetrical looking there. But in any case, it is leaning lower. The moving averages continue to drift lower. And, from a purely technical perspective, the trend is clearly lower, right? Lower lows, lower highs, moving averages are heading south. The shorter EMA here on my chart, the blue line is the 10 EMA, is below the longer EMA. In my chart, it's a 22. And everything here, just from a purely technical perspective, you're saying is the trend is still down. Now, we have not undercut the low that we made from last week. So it's going to be important to see if we're bouncing. Is this going to be a higher low? Ultimately, that's what the bulls want. We want to see a higher low set and then prices to start turning the trend. So we saw that bounce here into the weekend, and we were pulling back. Then we bounced into that 618 retracement level, but that was ultimately breached here a couple days ago. And so now that's kind of off the table. And now we're making a new low here relatively this week, but hasn't undercut that prior low. So is it still technically a higher low? It technically is. And so best case scenario is you get a bounce from these levels. But ultimately, we got to take out some near-term resistance. We've not been able to see that happen here on the Bitcoin prices. The 10 EMA is that first level to be watching. A daily close above that would be significant because prices have not been above the 10 EMA since, what is that, November 13th, November 12th. So, I mean, early, late, mid-November, that's when prices broke, EMAs rolled over, and prices have just not been able to get back above that. So in the very short term, that's the first target. Then above that, you look at price levels, horizontal price levels, and I continue to point out this level here. Again, on a closing basis, prices have not been able to close above this zone on the daily chart. So if prices bounce, that 4,300 level, closing above that, would begin to turn the corner. It would also be a bounce right into that 22 EMA. So certainly there are some hurdles on the way up if prices decide to bounce here. On the way down, looking at a couple of other things, if prices close below this 3,700 level, and it certainly is very close to doing that here today, then of course the last week's lows is the next level to watch. That's around that 3,450. But below that, then you're looking at major support levels down at around 3,000. And so that would be the next big target. Coincidentally, if you do a measured move on this pattern here, this descending triangle pattern, if that's the pattern we were looking at, then that projects down to around 3,100, 3,000. So in and around that zone. And again, those are long-term support levels based on the weekly chart. If you go to the weekly chart here, that's kind of going back to this major support level back here, which was prior resistance. And it was tested on this 1 week back here where it rallied above to 5K, pulls right back. That was last year, September. Remember the Jamie Dimon FUD, the China FUD, all that good stuff. And so that has set a place in the charts that we now look at as support. And that's basically around that 3K. So that's really the next major downside level if prices continue to break. But on this weekly chart, you know, that was a big break last week. We saw a bounce, green, now it's rolling over again. And at this point, it's leaning bearish. We just continue to see these little bear flag bounces on lower volume. You're getting another one right now. So we had a break here, and look at the hourly candles are bouncing, but look at the volume on these bounces. It's just not showing any conviction behind the move to the upside. Not a lot of buyers are stepping in as prices bounce higher, and we are now approaching these EMA pairs on the bounce. So in the very short run, meaning today, next couple of hours or so, that's your level of resistance to be watching here. Basically that level that broke down, also these EMA pairs. So any bounces right into that zone, that's where I'm going to be watching to see if prices can recover from there. But at this point, it's not looking too strong, to be fair. But there are several small cap, mid cap names that continue to outperform BTC, look much better, and more than offset this move to the downside. And so we'll look at a few of those here shortly. Before we do that, let's go to the coin market cap here real quick. Take a look at the big picture. Total market cap right at 122 essentially. Remember the lows were around that $114, $115 billion mark. We've given up quite a bit from the last week's rally. BTC dominance climbing a little bit up to 54%, but not a huge move. Still relatively in that same zone it has been in for quite some time, that mid-50s level. But you can see here today, just red across the board. Binance coin still up a little bit, had a big day yesterday. Very nice move to the upside yesterday, but for the most part, these names continue to roll over. Bitcoin Cash just continues to slide lower, getting close to that EOS market cap level here. So you're seeing those two, 2.3 billion versus 2.03 billion, and both of them are sliding fastly downward. Then you have most of the other names here down pretty much red across the board. Not a lot of places to hide, so just kind of sitting tight. Factum's never going down ever again. And let's see, even Waves, remember Waves was up 50% yesterday. But red for the most part across the board. But there are a few names that I do want to point out from the BTC pair perspective. And that's what I'm going to be mostly focusing on here today rather than like the USDT pairs. That's a tongue twister there. But so coin market cap, not a lot of change, testing the lows here from last week here. Let me zoom in on this chart here. And then we'll get to the charts. So we'll do some deep diving here. I don't have any major news items to cover here today in terms of the crypto space. We know that the stock market is closed here in the US today in honor of the funeral procession for former U.S. President George H.W. Bush. But most of the other markets around the world are still open, of course. But you're seeing here Bitcoin prices or crypto total market cap prices here, kind of going back to last week's lows here. So, all right, let's get to it. Before I forget, nodeinsiders.com, you can get proprietary alerts. Sign up there at nodeinsiders.com. You can try it on a monthly basis or go longer. We're going to be adding some more pages to this, some more features, some automated watch list stuff that I use to kind of curate my list. And for those of you that are already subscribing to this, I've added a couple more video courses here. I just added another one today. And so there's basically the video library. Many of you guys have already seen the technical analysis course that I published last year. Those videos are on here if you wanted to get access to those. But I've also added a few more. I've added trading psychology, risk management, which in my opinion is one of the most, if not the single most important aspect if you're trading actively. Risk management is really the make or breaker for so many people. You may have the right setups, you may have the right technical analysis, you may have the right entry, but if you don't manage risk or your position size or risk reward ratios, it's going to really impede your success long term. And I'll be adding some more strategies here once I wrap up the TA part, but I have moving averages, MACD indicator mini course, RSI course, volume analysis, and then today added a new kind of quick fundamentals of support and resistance. So nodeinsiders.com, and we'll be using this here during the stream today as I kind of filtered through some of these names. So, all right, so some of the names on my list first, and we'll certainly get to your names here when we start looking at that. But looking at, okay, so we talked to Bitcoin here. Let me pull up my other list here real quick. All right, so I'm going to filter through. Now, I have not seen these charts here in the last, I don't know, for 4 or 5 hours. I was away from the charts and just literally got back to my computer here a few minutes ago. So Chad and Drew, if you're listening, good chatting with you over coffee today. But, you know, I had to leave to do the live stream here. So so here we are. So I pointed out a few names to the Slack group here earlier today. Let me go through the list here. So Tron was on the list here. Tron BTC. I've been watching this one here yesterday, was moving upward. Let me clear that. Was kind of on the radar yesterday because it bounced back up over this resistance here. So you can see it was finding resistance, and then some volume came on the radar, pulled right back, but is seeing some more upward action. If we go to that 4-hour chart, look at how the moving averages continue to head up. Has held up relatively well versus BTC here. During this pause, this consolidation, volume really started to dry up, and now it's starting to break out of range and start stair-stepping its way higher. So that's what I like to see. Now, Bitcoin is under pressure, and if it breaks support, a lot of these names may pull back. So I'm just keeping a cautious stance at this point, but I'm always building that watch list, always looking for what's holding up, what's outperforming even now. So if the market decides to put a low in here and begins to bounce, you know, you have a list of names ready to go and to start looking for entries and setups in those names. And so this is one that's on the list right now. Tron has been holding up relatively well versus Bitcoin. We saw a pretty good move here about a week ago and has just been consolidating since then. And now it's starting to edge out and break some near-term resistance. So one to watch here. On the daily chart, again, a stronger looking name, stronger than most. Again, that big volume spike, pulling back right to these EMAs and starting to head higher here. In the big picture, next major resistance is right here, and it's not far from it now. And then, of course, that most recent swing high there, which is around 410 on this BTC pair. So those are the two I'm looking at, but Tron, all in all, looking pretty good here from this perspective. BNB, man, what a move it had yesterday and the day before and still going. This is one of those where I took a trade and I jumped off way too early and never jumped back on. So I was moving nicely here. And the entry premise here, let me go to, let me zoom this out here. Whoops. And the trade here was, again, it was on the watch list back here. It was one of those names holding up better, outperforming. And from the 4-hour chart, this is really what I was watching. Let me show that here. Where to go? And that was really the basis for the entry right there. I saw it breaking above resistance. I said it's a go. And so I jumped in on a little bit of a pullback there. And my upside target was literally like 5% to the upside, but I had a very tight stop. And when you have a tight stop and a decent upside, you can get bigger on size because the downside is minimal. So I took a bigger position than usual. And then I had that rally, and I got out of my position here near there's high, and of course it just took off from there and really went more. So should have let the rest ride. I scaled out along the way up, but still moving higher. Crazy strong name. I mean, just tons of volume coming in here near the highs. Getting a little volatile here over the last day and a half, though. You're seeing the volume spikes, and these are pretty big moves both directions. If you look at the pullbacks here, about 8% peak to peak, bounces very strong, 15%. So has made for some decent moves. Gave you another entry here yesterday when it pulled back to the 10 EMA on that chart. Posted that for the group yesterday here, said, hey, this might be a good secondary entry point on this pullback. Turns out that was a pretty good entry there. I mean, basically nailed the entry on that one there. So up another 13% from that point higher, but still moving nicely. One of the shining places here, one of the ports in the storm during the recent pullback. Big move up on BNB. Certainly is extended though. I mean, looking a little double top-ish there in my opinion, up 30% right now. You can see the RSI is showing some loss of momentum with this most recent leg higher. So just keep that in mind if you're trading some of this stuff. It's bouncing right into resistance. It is starting to lose a little steam, if you will, on this move higher. So I'd be cautious here at this point. Looking like a little double top, but hasn't technically broken to the downside. So the uptrend is still in place, but there's some red flags starting to show up here. So BNB was on the list today. Let me go through my list here. Decred hit the radar earlier today. Let me see how's Decred looking. Decred setting up. Let me pull up. There we go. And so if you look at the 4-hour chart, again, trying to put in a little bit of a low, building a base here of support on this. So clearly that's your level to be watching. If it breaks below that, then this setup is out of the way. And look at the 10 EMAs finally crossing above this 22. It's probably hard to see on there, but starting to clear some near-term resistance. And that's the level I'd be watching here. Has not been able to get above this since late November. This is the 4-hour chart. And again, it's still technically in a big downtrend on the daily. It's just bouncing right into that 10 EMA, but it's showing those early signs of maybe, just maybe putting in a low. And so this is a smaller cap, lower volume name. Got to take it with a grain of salt, but on the 4-hour chart, something to be noting here. So Decred. Next on the list was, District. District popped here today. Gave it all back too. So interesting to see that. Big volume spike here earlier today, but look at that, quickly reversed lower. Now still holding the moving averages, but you don't like to see them pull back so suddenly and just give up the whole move. Definitely not a bullish sign. We'll see if it holds these lows here, but came on the radar earlier when it popped. Engine has been moving. Small cap name as well. Something to be noting here. Going to that 4-hour chart, you can see it's just been stair-stepping. Now, these are some big moves, very volatile name. Look at that wick way down here. So just very volatile, but the general trend has been moving higher. And these smaller cap names that are so volatile, if I do trade these, I take smaller positions. One, liquidity is tougher, so it's harder to get in and out of, but the volatility, I mean, just crazy action there, but moving strongly in overall here versus Bitcoin. Let me see what else here. Nablio. There's a name from yesteryear. Not liking it as much as it was this morning. We'll move on. Poly had a move earlier. How's that looking? Not too bad. Still popping here. Some volume came in on Polymath. You can see the volume spike there. And again, cleared some near-term resistance here on this 4-hour chart. Pushed higher on volume, pushing above this next level right now. A little bit extended off this 4-hour chart. Let me pull up the RSI here. You can see it still has room to run to the upside. Kind of consolidating right now, and the 1-hour chart's cooled off a little bit here. It looks like it wants to start edging higher. So Polymath had a pretty decent move today. Power is a tough one. It's just so wicky. But Power continues to edge higher, moving up slowly but surely, pulling back here a little bit. So this may be an interesting place to look at it here with a little bit of a pullback here, again, on lower volume as this is paused, and see if it holds this moving average pair. If it begins to move higher, that may be a good secondary entry place on Power. RCN. So I was in a trade on this one yesterday, cleared out once Bitcoin started to roll over. Doesn't look like it's going to pan out here. Let me clear some of these lines. And so what I was watching was this setup initially. You can see it was testing this resistance, and the price range was really starting to narrow. So I jumped in there. Looked like it was pushing higher yesterday, but has since rolled over. And so back below that breakout point, still technically holding above this support. So that's going to be the level to be watching, but would have been nice to see that one push higher. Oh, Salt. Salt's still holding up. Again, had a breakout yesterday, was edging out, came on the radar, and had a good move higher from that breakout point. At the peak, was up about 25% very quickly, and then has since paused, pulled back, but it's still holding these moving averages. This pullback has been constructive on lower and lower volume, keeping above these moving averages. So things are still looking positive. It's just a pause at this point. Here's the 1 hour chart. All in all, consolidating well. So one to keep an eye on here. And Stratus. See how Stratus, sorry about all these markups here. You can see I've been watching this. It looks like that hit the target here. It's since been rolling back over. So maybe coming off the list now. But that's what I was looking at here. I shared this chart here looking for a breakout. My target on that upside was around that 2300 level. You can see it came pretty close to that, and that's where it found resistance and has since been rolling over from that point. And these lines in the charts, I often get asked, like, how did you find that target? How did you set that target? You know, it came pretty close to that before pausing. And those are good ways to set targets. And what I look for are these prior resistance and support levels. It's a key level to be watching. And so depending on your time frame, the first move was this daily resistance. You can see that first rally higher. That was that first yellow line, and it paused there twice on a daily basis, pulled back, came back in 2 more days, could not close above that, finally broke above it and pushed right through the next major resistance levels to this next target here. And so it's very helpful to understand where these zones are going to be placed, because if you're setting targets to the upside, you'll know where to start looking for, hey, maybe I should raise the stop or start scaling out and taking profits. Of course, price action is always first. If it starts to fail before then or roll over, that's absolutely actionable. But having these targets are good, because then you can set risk reward ratios. If you're going long here, you can say, that's my target, and here's my stop. And if it meets the parameters, then I'll take the trade. And if it doesn't, then you know that you can pass on the trade. And in this case, it was almost a 3R multiple, 4% downside, 13% upside. And for me, that's a good trade to take. All right, let's see here. Next on the list, I only have a few more, and then I'll get to your guys' names. Wanchain was on the list today. Wanchain still to be watched, not really breaking out, but I've been watching this here. Looks like it hit resistance again at that same level today and has since been pulling back. So nothing to do just yet, just still consolidating. I am making note that these highs are starting to get higher and higher, these lows, excuse me. And so you're seeing a higher low pattern being set, same general resistance level, but that's interesting to note there that it's starting to kind of consolidate here. Nothing to do yet. Wax was trying to edge out here yesterday. It's just been real choppy here today, but still kind of trending higher. Again, this is a lower volume name, but was trying to edge out above resistance. Still holding up. Hasn't really quite had the move yet. And NEM. And NEM continues to march higher on this guy here. And so NEM, this was really the level that I was watching here, this pullback over here. You can see it had a few attempts to break out, and then just here in the last day, really getting going again on NEM. Daily chart all around just continues to be strong, stair-stepping its way higher and really picking up some momentum. I mean, that's a pretty steep trajectory there on NEM versus BTC. And again, the signal was that massive volume spike here at the lows. You got to pay attention to volume. And I just constantly say that, but I mean, it just holds true, especially when you see this low. Look at this low that came in. It found a low in September, and it really just consolidated, build this range back and forth, and then this massive volume spike came in, and that just kind of kicked off this rally. So NEM has been holding up pretty well here over the last week and a half or so. All right, so that was on the list here today. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, I apologize. I added a few more names. Walton. See how Walton looks. Let's see how this Walton looks. Oh, nice breakout earlier. Wow, Walton just pushed higher and has been consolidating here a little bit. So we'll see how that does. On that 4-hour chart, still holding above this breakout point. So that's what I'd be watching here, this near-term resistance. It's consolidating just above that. And so we'll see if that can hold up. Big volume that came in on that initial move higher, so that's a good sign. And Poet had a big spike earlier. Big wick all the way up here. Aeon. Pulling in pretty deep here. Don't like to see that. I mean, it had that strong move higher. Cleared this resistance back here. Let me move that line back there, but now has just really undercut and almost given up that entire move. So not a good sign usually. On that 1-hour chart, there was some high volume right at the top here, at the top of this move, and you're seeing some volume coming in as it sells off. So not looking quite as strong anymore. And Particle, anybody want to talk Particle? Small cap name, still going. All right. Let's see what you guys got here. So I'm going to look through the list here. I'm going to try to keep up with the comments and see what you guys want to look at, but we'll keep it pretty open. I don't really have any other items to share. If you have questions about trading or technical analysis, by all means, let's start the conversation, but I'll be looking at these. Oh, Ripple. Well, let's look at Ripple. I've been watching Ripple for a few days now and was finally signaling that maybe, just maybe, it's done. And so I've been watching Ripple here on this pullback. Let me clear all this here for you guys. And I'll start with the fresh chart. So looking at Ripple, right? Ripple had this nice rally here and then finally big reversal bar on high volume and has since really been consolidating. But over the last week, this consolidation has taken a pause and you're seeing this range develop here. So if you go to that 4-hour chart, there was two things I was looking at first. First was, can it finally break this downtrend? And it has by default, just because it's going sideways now. And so on the downside, it's got to stay above this level. That's your key support level to be watching. And then on the upside, there is some resistance that is starting to form here. And you can see it's very much just range bound at this point, just kind of back and forth, back and forth. So definitely one I'm watching here to see if it can start to break out, move upward above this range. If it does, that daily chart will really start to turn the picture, may signal that this downtrend is lower or is over, and we'll send another leg up and we'll go from there. But for now, the line in the sand is drawn. Those are the levels to be watching on a daily basis. I'd probably move it up a little bit higher. If it closes below this level here that it's not been able to close below, that'd be bad news. On the upside, you know, pretty clear line in the sand as far as where it needs to go. On the positive, it's held above this breakout point, and that's where this consolidation has taken place. And so all of these support and resistance levels are in play right now, and they're becoming significant. So definitely something to watch. But Ripple is still looking, it's starting to look better here today. On the USD pair, of course, it's not, because Bitcoin's been dropping. So if you look at Ripple USD, you know, not looking too hot there. Just everything is looking this way from that perspective. That's why so that was a good question. Why BTC pairs? And I'm looking at what's holding up and outperforming versus Bitcoin, because building the watch list, right? If the market decides to bottom here and Bitcoin starts to rally, I'm going to be paying attention to those names that were already moving upward, as that could be where your strength is, right? Where your leadership comes in from. So that's why the BTC pairs today. So what are the average green and yellow lines? So those are my EMAs. This first line is a 10 EMA, and the second one is a 22 EMA. That's the yellow line. Let's see here. Talk about trading strategy. Okay. We'll definitely cover that. Let me keep catching some of these questions here. BTC was $1,000 only 23 months ago. Good point. BAT. Let's go look at BAT. So looking at the BAT here, you know, it was really looking like you wanted to get going here a few days ago. This is the daily chart, by the way, here. And just rolling over here the last 3 days along with everything else and underperforming Bitcoin. You can see as Bitcoin's been dropping, this has been dropping even faster than Bitcoin. So not looking too good on this 4-hour chart, just really rolling over right now. A lot of volume coming in here on this way down. And so nothing for me to do here. We'll see where it finds support. It's trying to find a little bit of a low here, but no confirmation. Most of these bounces have been failing into these moving averages on a lot of those names that are rolling over. Cardano. It's Cardano. Eesh. Look at a big drop here today on Cardano. Bounced right into that wall there and has just really rolled over hard here the last 2 days. Big volume spike here near the lows and really testing this November 25th low right now. You can see that's essentially where the wick was here today, but not looking too good. How's that look on that daily chart? Yeah, I mean, it's not looking bullish by any means. What I'd be looking for here is see if it holds that low. Maybe a double bottom, but it's not looking too strong. If anything, that looks like a bear flag break. You can see that bounce right into those moving averages. Typical kind of action, bearish action, and then just breaking lower. I would bet on a new low here on this one. EOS, we haven't covered EOS. Let's go take a look at EOS. Now, EOS dollar here was I was watching this. Look at how ugly this looks on EOS dollar. And again, EOS dollar last week just sliced right through these lows, and that really accelerated the move. We saw an attempt to hold the lows here. Let me hide that line here real quick. Man, that one's just really tanking fast. So it was in a pretty tight range here for quite some time. I mean, basically since August, and this range really started to narrow along with Bitcoin. And we saw that big break, and look, it attempted to hold that for a few days and then just sliced right through that line. And since then, bam. How far was that? Quickly down 50% once breaking that support. That was a major break. And yeah, that's one falling knife I'm not willing to catch right now is EOS. Wax. Okay, we covered Wax already. Cardano. We've not done Cardano. Oh yeah, we just did Cardano. Sorry. What was the other one? QKC. Neo. Was watching Neo. Looked like maybe it was trying to get going yesterday and then had that big break, and Neo's done for now. Was trying to hold this support. Volume came in. Could not clear this resistance. So, I mean, hit it again. Pausing. Just heading lower. So, for now, not looking too good here versus BTC. And it's about to test some support again. So, that's really going to be the level to be watching here in the next day or so. Is can it hold above this line, which is around 1845, give or take here on the BTC pair. Neo dollar out these days. $7 Neo. And it's looking pretty bearish here on this chart, to be honest. You could argue that's a good descending triangle right there with your low being tested here as we speak, right around that $7 mark. So break below that would not look pretty. So that's what I'd be watching on Neo here. Downward pressure for sure on Neo. Ontology. Is this guy ever going to bounce here? Breaking below. It's basically right at that August low. I mean, almost exactly to the wick, but it's already below the closing bases on that level. And next level down, I mean, you're talking March levels at that point. So, eesh. It's been just brutal on Ontology. Just been hammered. No love for Ontology right now. Oh, let's see here. You want some $3 Neo? Oh, man, you might get it. I hate to say that, but you might get Neo $3. Icon, another one that's just been smacked, continues to drop here. Look at that. Icon down to 23 cents. Wasn't Icon at 12 bucks at one point? Yikes. But I mean, it's still technically above last week's low, but not looking too good. You can see that bounce right into these moving averages and just starting to roll over right now. Looking very similar to some of the other charts from the dollar pair. Let's see how it looks on the BTC pair. Not much better there. Much better names holding up versus Icon. So you can see BTC Icon not looking as good either. Just kind of bounced and starting to roll over again. Needs to turn the corner. Oh, let's see here. Looking at some of these other names here. Monero. Let me go to Monero on Binance first. Monero, again, another name was trying to hold up since it's broke that support, has just really accelerated to the downside. We must have looked at this one during the last stream here, but next level down on Monero is right there. You can see we had a wick there a couple candles ago, but slight bounce. Moving averages are still heading down. That's really your next level to watch of support. See if we can bottom out here, but the trajectory, the momentum is absolutely in favor of the sellers right now. And if I had to guess on this one too, I'd say it's going to break support here. So we'll see. Has room to go on the downside RSI wise. Not a lot of good looking charts out there, man. I can see why it's so quiet. No one's trading. Nobody wants to see the charts. They look brutal. You're hibernating this winter. I think a lot of people are hibernating right now. Tology, EOS, Monero. Is anybody buying here, guys? Are you guys buying, or are you just all waiting? Or selling? Are you guys selling here? Augur. Let's go look at Augur. Interesting. It looked like it wanted to get going a few days ago. It's just real choppy here at the lows. Big volume spike right into that resistance level. Look at that. Could not clear that big reversal from there. Just real choppy, though. You're buying already? Everything's on sale. How do you not take profits on a 50x move? Tethered. Dollar cost averaging. That's, I know a few people that are starting to do that at these levels. It's probably not a bad strategy, to be honest. VeChain. You're shorting ETH. Got a short on ETH open right now as well. Yeah, that's a good question on Tether. Do you trust Tether? I've been pretty leery of Tether now, to be honest. And now that some of the exchanges are adding other stablecoin alternatives, I've been taking advantage of those. VeChain. No love for VeChain. Look at this daily chart. Ouch. It's trying to put a low here. We'll see if it holds. Look at it's going right back to this August low. And if you let me zoom the chart out a little bit. There's the August low. That's where it last found some support. Had a strong move after that. Has fully retraced that, but over the last, I don't know, week and a half, 2 weeks, trying to hold the low, but it's getting crunch time here with these moving averages really starting to squeeze down on the price. So it's going to be interesting to see which way this goes from here. It needs to bounce pretty soon here. Not looking good. QAsh. Buying ETH. Oh, you're buying, selling ETH in 3% increments. So there's been some questions on INS. Let me go look at INS. There's been some questions on strategy. And here's the thing about strategy. There's different types of strategies. There's trend following strategies. There's support resistance strategies where you're playing the range, buying at support, selling at resistance. There's breakout strategies. There's counter trend strategies. There really is, and within those major categories, there's literally a million ways to do it. You can do Ichimoku, you can do purely price action based, you can use indicators, you can use chart patterns, candlestick patterns. I mean, there's just so much, right? There's not one size fits all. And the thing with strategy is a strategy may work well with one risk tolerance or one personality type and not work well for another type of trader, right? So it's good to try different strategies and figure out what's your type of strategy, right? What works better for you? And everybody has their own. Like there's certain strategies that I'll use that they just work better for me. I'm more comfortable with them. And there's other strategies where some other trader can profit very well from them, but for whatever reason they just don't work for me, right? My style or my personality or my time frame. And so that being said, there's a lot of different types of ways to do it. The best thing I would recommend, though, is to build kind of your own strategy and start with the simple stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have to overcomplicate it. I mean, trading doesn't have to be that hard. If you understand some of the core principles of trends, support, resistance, you don't need a million fancy indicators on your charts. The biggest thing is risk reward. I mean, that's all ultimately what it comes down to is risk management. If you're buying a purely support or a dip, so many people get caught up in, I got to be right. I got to make the right call. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about managing risk, taking high probability trades. And if you're wrong, then you just get out of the way and look for another entry. And sometimes you got to take a shot 2 or 3 times on the same name before it finally works. So, but there's different types of strategies. My favorite are, I like to use the breakout strategies, the trend momentum strategies. So like in this case, INS, right? If you had a breakout on high volume, these pullbacks, these throwbacks to moving averages or prior support levels is where I start to look for these entries. I use Fibonacci as one of my favorite kind of retracement tools and targets to the upside. And there's also strategies around patterns, right? Ascending triangle patterns, bull flags, double bottoms. Now, those can be a little bit more subjective and a little bit less likely to work just because so many people are trading them, and you tend to see breakouts faded very often these days. They fade the breakouts. And so you just got to be careful with some of those. You get false breakouts all the time. But just simple kind of high volume breakouts, breaking out of trend resistance is kind of my favorite. And then these trend following strategies always work the best. I mean, if you're trading in the direction of the trend, that's the best way to go in any market, whether it's stocks or crypto or anything, because you got the wind to your back, right? If you're trying to short these peaks along the way, you're kind of fighting the trend, if you will. Wait for the trend to turn and start shorting that point. So that's what I'd be looking at, trading direction of the trend. I do counter trend strategies from time to time where things get so extreme and you're kind of trading the bounce, but those are higher risk, lower probability, to be honest with you. So they don't work as much, and I tend to use smaller positions on those type of things. So somebody asked about INS here. It is looking pretty good. Big volume spike. Seeing a little consolidation and starting to move higher here today. Volume is coming in pretty good. So yeah, very nice. Let me see this 4-hour chart. Looks like it's clearing resistance now and really starting to push higher. So very good stuff on that one. Looking pretty good here. Still has room to run on that 1-hour, 4-hour RSI. Looking at some of these questions here. One sec, guys. GRS. Not looked at that chart in a while. Let's go check it out. There's the 4-hour chart in GRS. How's that daily look? Minus that huge wick. Yeah, just kind of sitting tight. Looks like it might be turning the corner here. Pulling right back here. Had a big day about 3 days ago. Pulling back here on lower volume. Good sign, but that'd be the level I'd be watching the prior day's highs. See if it can close above that. That was a big resistance point. You can see that right here. Let me go over here real quick, see what's moving today that we haven't already talked about. So GLD and small cap stuff. QuantStamp. All right, let's go look at QuantStamp. What's QSP doing? Oh, I had that wick. Totally reversed, though. It doesn't look like it's... So this would probably triggered it here, this candle there triggered that, but it has pulled right back into that support, so wasn't able to hold that move. We already saw Poet, we already saw BNB, we already saw Poly. We saw Salt, Engine, OST, Walton, Aeon. So most of these names we've already seen, so won't look at those. Let's go to GLD. What is that? Gold coin. Gold coin. Never even heard of gold coin. Oh man, what a move it had here in the last couple of days. Ant. It's a small cap name too. Been around for a while though. It's one of the longer term projects. Looks like it's pushing higher here today. 4-hour chart. Smaller volume too, you can see this. Brandon in the house. What's going on, man? Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you being here. Monaco. Well, crypto.com. Nice little move it out here with the last few days. Monaco bouncing. Bouncing into some resistance here. You can see on the daily chart, this low back here. And up here is really the two levels I'd be watching. And you can see that's where it's starting to take a little bit of a pause, but certainly has some upward momentum here over the last few days. Quantum. Quantum, not looking too pretty there, Quantum. But yeah, big slide down lower versus BTC here. Starting to undercut this most recent support, and just cannot turn the corner. Has some big wicks, but just no upward momentum. Factum, man, Factum. Still going. What do you say? Factum, still going. Man, how far has this guy moved since breaking out? Oh, it's only up 448% in 22 days. Factum. Singularity. Yeah, let's go check that one out. I know that was moving here. What was that guy's name? Dr. Ben. What was his name? Well, he was on the live stream yesterday on YouTube. Is it just me, or does he remind you of James Halliday from Ready Player One? That's what I was thinking. Every time I would hear him talk, I'm like, hey, that's James Halliday. No disrespect to the man. He's Superman for sure. But still moving up pretty good. Had that big move here, kind of consolidating over the last 3 days. And yeah, setting up nice. Actually, a little bit of a bear pennant or bull pennant here. You can call that. That's what I'd be watching here if it starts to break out of this. Looks positive though. Holding up rel. Moving averages are moving up. He had an awesome hat as well. Yeah, he did. And apparently he had some awesome names for his kids. Digibytes. Eesh, Digibyte. Rolling over here a little bit. Not looking too pretty here. Breaking below this support level and just started to accelerate lower right now. Not a lot of support here near term. You can see this was a big move higher, pulling back. And thanks for sharing that link here on that YouTube. Whoops. Hey, can you post it again? I accidentally hit the wrong button. View. There it goes. Okay. Never mind. I got it. Neo Geo. Thanks for sharing that. That's really the next level on Digibyte. See if we can hold that, but it's pulling in pretty quick here. Zcash. Man, that sure fizzled out after that Coinbase surprise, right? Rallied right up there and just has pulled back. Big volume down here today on Zcash. How's Zcash dollar look? Zcash, I'm going to go dollar on Bitfinex. Yeah, I just told to retrace that move, and it's retesting these lows here around 60, 66 basically, and then below that 62.70. Oh, let me see here. Red Pulse Phoenix. Man, that one had a big move last month. Looking at to see if it was ready again. It hasn't really been pulling up here. You know, there's another one, Theta, that I was watching here. How's Theta looking today? It's kind of rolling over, breaking down. Golem. There's a name from yesteryear. Golem. Yeah, I was watching this one from this breakout. It had that big move here. What was that, 2 days ago? Big wick, and just kind of fizzling out after that. Not a lot of momentum since then. I'll just be watching to see if this can at least flatten out. But right now, not looking like it wants to, and it's just back to the breakout point basically right there. Golem. Chain coin. Oh, the chain coin gang is here. Chain link. Link has Link was moving nicely for a while, but yeah, just it's done since we entered December. Just really trending lower here on this daily chart. Let me clear some of these levels here, but not looking too hot here. You can almost say that's it looks weird, but it's almost a good head and shoulders here. But same psychology basically. You had a rally, and you had the peak. And they tried to rally it again, made a lower top, and just breaking down since then. Cardano. OMG, you did not miss OMG because we haven't looked at it. OMG, man, OMG was on the radar here too a few days ago, but just kind of pulling back, trying to bounce here a little bit, and just could not muster any more strength to get above, and looking a lot like many of these other names here from the BTC side. I was watching it here a couple days ago. I had that nice rally off the lows, but just fizzled out. No love for OMG. Yeesh. OMG, what's it back to on the dollar pair? Isn't it back to like $2 or something? $1.38. OMG. Substratum. Man. You guys remember when all these projects were going to take over the world? They still might. But man, come a long ways. Substratum. Right back to the lows, making new lows, to be honest, just drifting lower here. And I've not kept up with Substratum, so I haven't seen any progress or anything on this project. I'm not sure what they're doing these days. 10x, these token cards. Any of you guys have a 10x card? Man, 10x. I traded this one a lot back in the day. 10x is just not been active, not really moving strongly here. Had a few attempts, but most of these have fizzled out here. Genesis Vision. GBT. Did break this big downtrend here and had a pretty decent rally there for a while, but just giving it all up here, trending lower, attempting a little bit of a base here, but this has a descending triangle type of look to it with these lower highs and really testing support right now. Odds favor it breaks lower. If I was a betting man, I'd say it goes lower. ARC. Man, no follow through on ARC. Had a quick spike the other day. Looked like it wanted to finally get going. And just look at that. Just has fizzled it all out and giving it all back up. Had that breakout here. Took a small trade on this one. Not a big move. And just rolled right over. Still was a green trade for me, but I was looking for more upside. Just once it started to consolidate here, I was thinking this is the place to watch, see if it holds, and just has given it all up yesterday. We'll see where it finally lands. Strat. We did Stratus earlier, but you're saying a full retrace up? I don't know. Yeah, Strat's giving that all up too. RCN, I know. All right. Scrolling through these comments here to see what I've missed. Coming in fast. Stellar. How did I miss Stellar? Where's Stellar Bitcoin here? I'll do on Binance here. Stellar pulling in pretty hard here. Daily chart's not as bad. Let me zoom out here a little bit, but just recently, man, just pulling in pretty strong here. Been very Very volatile here as of late, though. Look at this last couple of months. Just big moves up, big moves down, big moves up. So not nothing for me to do on this guy just yet. Just trying to get going here, but the last couple of days just fizzling out. Substrata, we covered that one. We covered Strat. We covered Wax. Covered Wax, my friend. BNB, we covered BNB. Let's go back to the Bitcoin. We'll go to some of the big cap names. I'll cover Ethereum again, and then we'll look at a few more names here. So give me 1 sec. Looking at Bitcoin, though, it's just not looking very strong here. With all of these bounces just continue to fizzle out. You're seeing that happen right now. And so I just I'm just taking a defensive stance right now. The downtrend is still very much in place here on this 4-hour chart. You can see here, series of lower highs and lower lows. We've had an attempt to rally, could not happen. Found a low, rallied again. Here we are making a new low. And right now the levels to be watching here are just, this support level right now. And again, on a closing basis, right, on this 4-hour chart, that's around 36 and change, that 3,600 level that was holding, that created this small double bottom last week. That's going to be the next target. And then below that, major support is 3K, anywhere between there. 3,000, 3,300 is really the levels to be watching on a daily basis. The closing price is what I was watching on the daily basis. And so that's 3,700. Close below that would be a new closing low for me. Again, not bullish. So that's really what I'd be watching on this 4-hour chart. Again, going back, for those of you guys that were in the chat room, you guys already saw this, but this is what I was watching. These prices were getting symmetrical here. And clearly we have broken lower from that low yesterday. That's what I was looking at, starting to edge lower. So all in all, the downward pressure remains. The sellers are in control. Let's see ETH here. This again. Someone was saying this is not a descending triangle, and I don't know how you don't see a descending triangle there, but I guess that's the beauty of technical analysis. Everybody can interpret that a little bit differently, but that's what I'm watching here. Once it started to break below this near-term support here, that was kind of my short entry right there on that guy. But if you do a technical downside target on this pattern here, and again, that's just a technical, so it's not a hard pattern, hard target or anything, but that measures down to around, high 80s, $90 or so. We'll see where that one goes. All right, descending wedge, descending triangle, semantics at that point. I mean, the posture is bearish. The result's the same. If it breaks support, it's going to be a big break of support. You'll see more selling pressure show up most likely. Best case scenario, it's a false breakout and quickly reverses back above. But right now, the market leans to the downside. All right, let's see here. So we covered most of these. Strat, ARC. All right. I think I've covered most of the names that were on my list here. Let me go to the coin market cap here real quick. Back to the main page here. Just trying to keep this one a little short today, guys. So just wanted to get a quick update here on the market. Take some charts with you guys here. We covered most of these names here. We didn't cover Litecoin. We'll look at Litecoin. Let's look at the Bitcoin Cash names. Man, those have been rough here. We'll go to Litecoin here first, but looking at Litecoin BTC, has not really been able to recover once it put in this little bit of a double top here, breaking below support here today and starting to drift lower. Next level then I'd be watching is around that 765 level, in and around there. The Bitcoin Cash names. First, Bitcoin Cash ABC here versus BTC on Binance. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Look at that. Bitcoin Cash ABC just continues to sell off here versus Bitcoin. If you look at it on the USD pair, USD Tether pair, down to about $130 almost. Initially debuted right around that $300 mark, but just continues to drift lower. On the other side, Bitcoin Cash SV, looking at the BTC pair, has been sitting relatively tight versus Bitcoin. So definitely something to note here. I'm keeping an eye on this one for a potential breakout of this range. Again, this is versus BTC. The dollar pair is going to be drifting lower with Bitcoin, but this one's looking interesting here, just kind of sitting tight. Bitcoin Cash SV versus Bitcoin Cash SV versus Tether. Again, just has that drift lower along with Bitcoin prices. So it's been holding up well. Not sure what to make of these, to be honest. I'm not trading either one of these just because it just seems like any news, any change and progress there just going to really drive prices one way or the other. And so I'm just kind of staying out of the way from the Bitcoin Cash perspective. IOTA, we didn't cover IOTA and Dash. So looking at IOTA, let's keep an eye on this one just because the range was getting pretty tight here on this one, but still drifting lower, not a lot of upside movement. Was sitting tight here a little bit. I did that again. Did that last time on my live stream. Where is it? There it is. Darn you. There it is. And breaking lower here. Was trying to hold up. Big move down here today. I owed $1. Back to 25 cents on IOTA dollar. Breaking support. No end in sight here. Big pullback on IOTA. Cannabis or uranium? Looking at the cannabis, I did track a few of those names. Chronos. Well, the markets were closed today, so we didn't get any new data. I know the Canadian ones were trading, but did you guys see that short piece on Afria? Oh, pretty interesting. Took a big dive after that. I mean, look at this guy. There was a short seller putting that investigative piece together. It was pretty fascinating to watch that, and just, man, just the shell company, the movements, and down pretty sharply since that news came out. But big short there. Uranibus. I have no idea about uranium. It's one item I don't track. All right. Cool. Okay, guys. Well, I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here today. Just wanted to make a quick live stream. I appreciate you guys being here. For now, just being patient, watching these levels today. Again, overall, prices are looking a little bit vulnerable here, to be fair, to be honest. And these are the levels to be watching here in the near term, guys. Any thoughts about BTC divergence? Which divergence are we talking about? Which time frame and which divergence here? URA ETF. Looks like a lot of the other ETFs. The MACD. Okay, let me go look at it. Let's check it out. Now, my MACD settings are different than the standard MACD settings, so something to note here on the daily time frame. I have a faster MACD. So here's the way I'm interpreting the MACD that I'm seeing right now, right? There's two ways that I'm looking at it, and they're bearish, to be fair. You saw the RSI bounce, and that was a little bit of a relief bounce on the RSI. Now it's starting to pull back a little bit here. It's probably hard to see on the chart, but look at the MACD histogram. It's starting to tick down here over the last couple of days, and so that's just signifying that loss of momentum, and so I'd be cautious there. The expectation is this MACD starts to turn red again, meaning prices would likely go lower. So that's how I'm looking at that. Switch to line chart. Bullish divergence on the daily. Okay. Well, the line chart would be about the same on the daily because the daily chart is based on the daily close. And so these MACD values and the RSI values are based on the closing prices of the daily candle. And most line charts are based on the daily close as well. So not sure, my friend. But again, it could be my settings too, because I have a different MACD setting that I use. Okay. Okay, guys. Hey, well, I appreciate you guys being here as always. I hope you guys all have happy holidays. If I don't see you guys on another live stream before then, I likely will, though. However, so we'll see you guys in the next one. Happy trading, and take care, everyone. Talk to you next time.